The giant doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a deep rumble. Ambassador Jiwan walked through them with her head held high. Behind her, 12 other humans followed in perfect formation. Their black uniforms looked simple compared to the colorful robes and armor worn by the alien delegates around them. Jiwan had been coming to these meetings for 3 months now. 3 long months of sitting at tables too big for human bodies. 3 months of listening to aliens speak about humans like they were children who needed to be taught how to behave. 3 months of keeping her anger hidden behind a calm smile. The council chamber was massive. It could hold representatives from over 1,000 different alien species. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Giant screens showed the faces of aliens who could not attend in person. Some lived underwater, others breathed poison gas. A few were made of living rock. At the center of it all sat the High Council. These were the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. They had been ruling space for millions of years before humans even learned to make fire. Today they would make their final offer to humanity. Chancellor Grimtusk of the Vorthak Empire spoke first. His voice sounded like grinding stone. The translator in Jiwan's ear turned his words into human language. "The Council has been very patient with your species," he said. "We have given you time to consider our generous terms." Jiwan almost laughed at the word generous. She kept her face blank instead. Grimtusk continued. "You humans have spread across the galaxy too quickly. You build colonies without asking permission. You trade with species we have forbidden contact with. You create new technologies without proper testing. This must stop." Prime Viridian of the Nexari spoke next. Her blue skin glowed softly as she talked. "We understand that humans are young and eager. But there are rules in this galaxy. Rules that have kept peace for millions of years. Your species must learn to follow them." The terms they offered were written on a crystal tablet that floated in the air between them. Jiwan had read them many times. Each reading made her angrier. First, all human military ships had to be destroyed. Earth could keep a small defense force, but nothing that could travel between stars. Second, all human colonies outside the solar system had to be abandoned. Humans could only live on Earth and a few nearby worlds that the Council would choose. Third, all human research had to be approved by alien scientists before it could continue. Fourth, human population growth had to be controlled by alien administrators. The list went on and on. Each rule was designed to keep humanity small and weak. Captain Hyunwoo sat behind Jiwan at the human delegation table. He had commanded starships in 3 different wars. Now he listened to aliens tell him that humans were too dangerous to be trusted with their own weapons. His hands were folded on the table, but Jiwan could see the tension in his shoulders. Behind the aliens' demands was fear. Humans had only made contact with the galaxy 200 years ago. In that short time, they had spread to over 50 worlds. Human traders were everywhere. Human doctors were saving alien lives that had been given up as hopeless. Human engineers were building things that alien science said were impossible. The older species did not like this. They had been comfortable with their slow, careful way of doing things. Humans changed everything too fast. "The Council requires an answer today," said Grimtusk. His small eyes stared at G1 like a predator watching prey. "Accept our terms and join galactic civilization properly, or face the consequences of your stubbornness." The threat was clear. If humans refused, the Council would use force. They had the largest fleet in the galaxy. Earth would be blockaded. Human colonies would be attacked. Trade would be cut off. Jiwan stood up slowly. The chamber fell silent. Even the constant humming of the translation devices seemed to quiet down. 1,000 alien eyes watched her. She had prepared this speech for weeks. But now, looking at all these smug alien faces, she decided to speak from her heart instead. 3 months ago, humanity came to these talks in good faith, she said. Her voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. "We believed that mature civilizations could discuss their differences and find solutions that worked for everyone." Some of the aliens shifted uncomfortably. They had expected her to either accept or beg for better terms. "Instead, we found a council that believes might makes right. You offer us a choice between slavery and war. You call it generous because you are not simply destroying us outright." Grimtusk's face darkened. "Choose your words carefully, human. You are speaking to powers beyond your understanding." Jiwan smiled then. It was not a friendly smile. "You're right. We don't understand power like yours. We don't understand how beings who claim to be civilized can make such demands. We don't understand how species that have had millions of years to grow wise can be so afraid of newcomers. The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Aliens roared, chirped, and made noises that had no human equivalent. The translation devices could not keep up with all the different protests. Jiwan waited for the noise to die down. When it did, she delivered the words that would change everything. Humanity rejects your terms. All of them. We withdraw from these proceedings immediately. We will have no further contact with this council unless you are prepared to treat us as equals. The silence that followed was complete. No one had ever walked away from the Galactic Council before. No species had ever been so bold. Prime Viridian was the first to recover. You cannot simply leave. The Council will not permit it. The Council cannot stop it, Jiwan replied. She gestured to Captain Hyunwoo, who stood and activated a small device. Immediately, every human in the galaxy received the same message: come home. As the human delegation walked toward the exit, chaos erupted behind them. Aliens shouted demands and threats. Some called for immediate military action. Others worried about what this meant for their own dealings with humans. Jiwan did not look back. She had given humanity's final answer. Now they would see if the galaxy was ready for the consequences. Admiral Minji stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station. Around her, dozens of screens showed human settlements across the galaxy. Each dot of light represented thousands of human lives that needed to come home safely. The message had gone out 6 hours ago. Come home. 2 simple words that would change everything. Admiral, we're getting responses from all sectors, reported Lieutenant Taehyun from his communication station. Colony ships are already launching from the Outer Rim worlds, Minji nodded. Humanity had prepared for this day, even though they hoped it would never come. Every human settlement had evacuation plans. Every colony ship was kept ready for immediate departure. The aliens thought humans were impulsive and chaotic. They were about to learn how wrong they were. On New Busan, Commander Taehyun received the evacuation order while he was reviewing the morning reports. The colony had been his home for 5 years. 40,000 humans lived there, working alongside friendly alien neighbors. They had built schools, hospitals, and factories. They had made New Busan into a thriving world. Now all of that had to be abandoned in less than 48 hours. Taehyun called his department heads together. You all know what this means, he said. Protocol Starfall is now active. We take everything we can carry and destroy the rest. The protocol was harsh but necessary. Humans would not leave their technology behind for the Council to study and copy. Every computer core would be wiped clean. Every piece of advanced equipment would be rendered useless. The aliens would inherit empty buildings and broken machines. Dr. Salmon was in the middle of surgery when the evacuation order came. Her patient was a young Zephyrian whose organs were failing. Without the operation, the child would die within days. With it, she would live a normal life. The doctor's hands never stopped moving. Continue the procedure, she told her team. We'll finish what we started. It took 6 hours to complete the surgery. While Dr. Soman worked, evacuation ships were loading around the hospital. Medical supplies, research data, and equipment were being packed into cargo containers. But the doctor would not leave until her patient was stable. When she finally walked to the evacuation ship, the young Zephyrian's father was waiting for her. He pressed a small crystal into her hands. It was a traditional gift of gratitude among his people. Why? He asked in broken human language. Why you leave us? Dr. Soman looked back at the hospital she had built from nothing. Because they would not let us stay as friends, she said. Only as servants. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human teachers were finishing their last lessons. Human engineers were shutting down the systems they had built. Human merchants were closing their shops forever. The economic impact hit immediately. The Corvin trade station depended on human cargo ships to move goods between star systems. When those ships started disappearing, trade routes that had operated for decades suddenly fell apart. Station Master Klexus watched his screens in growing panic. 12 human freighters were supposed to arrive that day. None of them came. Instead, he received a short message. Human ships are returning to human space. All contracts are terminated immediately. The Corvin had been making huge profits by charging fees to human traders. Now those profits were gone. Worse, the other alien merchants on his station were starting to panic. Without human ships to carry their goods, they were trapped. What do we do? asked his assistant. Klexus stared at the empty docking bays. I don't know, he admitted. I never thought they would actually leave. On the military front, things were even more dramatic. Captain Do-hyun commanded a human patrol ship that worked with the Council's peacekeeping forces. His job was to stop pirates and smugglers in the dangerous border regions. The Council had always claimed they were doing humanity a favor by letting human ships help with this work. They said humans needed the experience of working with real military professionals. Captain Do-hyun knew the truth was different. Human ships were faster and more maneuverable than most alien vessels. Human crews were better at thinking quickly in combat situations. The Council peacekeeping forces had become dependent on human support. Sir, we're receiving multiple distress calls, reported his communications officer. Pirate attacks in sectors 7, 12, and 15. The alien peacekeepers are requesting immediate assistance. Do-hyun looked at the tactical display. Without human ships to provide rapid response, the peacekeeping forces would be spread too thin. Pirates would have free run of half the galaxy. Send them our regrets, he ordered. Tell them human forces are no longer available for peacekeeping duties. As his ship turned toward human space, Do-hyun wondered how long it would take the Council to realize what they had lost. The evacuation was not just about people and equipment. Humans had also been providing services that the galaxy had come to take for granted. Human doctors treated diseases that alien medicine could not cure. Human teachers brought new ideas to alien universities. Human artists created works that inspired beings across the galaxy. All of that was disappearing. On the academic world of Prima Scientia, Professor Jinwoo was packing his research notes. He had been working on a project that could revolutionize space travel. The alien scientist he worked with begged him to stay. The research is too important, pleaded his colleague, a crystalline being named Resonance. Think of what we could accomplish together. Professor Jinwoo sealed another box of data crystals. I am thinking of it, he said. That's why I'm taking this research somewhere it can be completed freely. The exodus was massive but organized. Human colony ships moved in convoys protected by military escorts. They followed carefully planned routes that avoided Council patrol areas. The aliens watched in amazement as tens of millions of humans simply vanished from their territories. Some alien leaders tried to stop individual ships, but they quickly discovered that humans had prepared for this possibility. Every evacuation convoy was escorted by warships that were ready to fight if necessary. Admiral Minji monitored the progress from Earth. How many more convoys are still in Council space? She asked. 17 major groups plus scattered individual ships, replied her aide. The last convoy should reach the border in 36 hours. And casualties? None so far, Admiral. The Council seems too shocked to respond effectively. Minji allowed herself a small smile. The aliens had expected humans to beg and plead. Instead, humanity was leaving with dignity and efficiency. The Council was learning that there was a difference between being young and being weak. As the final human ships crossed into neutral space, the galaxy began to understand what it had lost. The exodus was complete, but its effects were just beginning. Behind them, humans left a galaxy that had grown dependent on their energy, creativity, and innovation. Ahead of them lay the unknown regions of space where humanity would discover what they could accomplish when they were truly free. 3 months had passed since the last human ship disappeared beyond the galactic rim. The Galactic Council chambers were quieter now. Many of the representatives who had demanded humanity's submission were dealing with crises back home. Councillor Thex of the Morvani Empire stood before the High Council with reports that no one wanted to hear. His people had ruled 17 star systems for over 2,000 years. They had built their empire on careful planning and superior technology. Now their empire was falling apart. The infrastructure failures are spreading, Thex reported, his voice heavy with exhaustion. 3 more worlds have lost primary life support. The terraforming systems on Morven Prime are failing. We estimate complete atmospheric collapse within 6 months. Chancellor Grimtusk slammed his fist on the table. How is this possible? Your people built those systems. No, Thex replied quietly. Humans maintained those systems. We built them centuries ago, but human engineers have been running repairs and upgrades for the past 50 years. Without them, everything is breaking down at once. The truth was embarrassing. The proud Morvani had allowed humans to handle the boring work of maintenance and repair. It was beneath the dignity of their noble engineers to crawl through service tunnels and replace worn-out parts. Humans had been happy to do that work, and they had done it better than anyone expected. Now the Morvani were learning that boring work was often the most important work of all. On the war-torn frontier, Bloodclaw of the Kethmoran warrior clans faced an enemy that grew stronger every day. The Void Spawn were creatures of living darkness that consumed entire worlds. For 30 years, the Kethmoran had fought them to a standstill. Then human military advisors had arrived. They did not fight alongside the Kethmoran warriors. Instead, they studied the enemy and suggested new tactics. They showed the proud warriors how to coordinate their attacks and use their weapons more effectively. The war had turned in the Kethmoran's favor. For the first time in decades, they were pushing the Void Spawn back. Now the humans were gone, and the Void Spawn were advancing again. Bloodclaw stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching enemy forces mass for another attack. His warriors were brave and strong, but bravery was not enough against an enemy that learned from every battle. "Send another message to the human territories," he ordered. "Offer them anything they want. Lands, titles, tribute, whatever it takes to bring them back." His communications officer looked uncomfortable. "Sir, we've sent 47 messages. None have received replies." Bloodclaw's claws scraped against the metal railing. The humans had tried to teach his people about strategy and planning. The Kethmoran had been too proud to listen carefully. They thought they could learn what they needed and then dismiss their teachers. Now those teachers were gone, and the lessons were incomplete. In the medical centers of the galaxy, the absence of human doctors was causing a crisis that grew worse every day. Dr. Yuna had been the leading researcher in quantum biological synthesis before the Exodus. Her work had promised cures for diseases that had plagued alien species for millions of years. The Altarian plague was one such disease. It turned the crystalline bodies of the Altarians into gray dust over the course of months. Nothing in traditional alien medicine could stop it. Entire worlds were dying. Dr. Yuna had been close to a breakthrough when the evacuation order came. Her research had shown that the plague could be stopped by disrupting its quantum signature at the cellular level. She had developed a treatment that worked in laboratory conditions. Now her research notes were gone, taken to human space beyond the galactic rim. The Altarian Medical Council had tried to recreate her work, but quantum biological synthesis required techniques that only humans had mastered. From somewhere beyond the galaxy's edge, Dr. Yuna's research station broadcast a single message. Treatment for Altarian plague completed successfully. 100% cure rate in final trials. The message included complete technical specifications for the cure. But it also included something else. Coordinates that placed Dr. Yuna's research station in a region of space that was impossibly distant. Even at maximum speed, it would take alien ships over a year to reach her location. The cure existed, but it might as well have been on another plane of reality. The economic chaos was getting worse every day. Profit Seeker of the Nixari calculated the damage with growing alarm. The Nixari were masters of commerce and trade. They had built their civilization on buying and selling goods throughout the galaxy. 17% of their total economic activity had involved human traders, human goods, or human services. When the humans vanished, that 17% disappeared overnight. "It's not just the direct losses," Profit Seeker explained to the Nixari Trade Council. The humans were connecting markets that had never interacted before. They were creating value by bringing together buyers and sellers who didn't even know each other existed. The council chamber was filled with charts and graphs that all told the same story. Profits were down across every sector. Trade routes were collapsing. Entire industries that had grown up around human innovation were shutting down. "Can we replace them?" asked Trademaster Bluefin. Profit Seeker's tentacles writhed in distress. "Replace them with what? No other species has their combination of curiosity, adaptability, and willingness to take risks. They went places and tried things that we would never consider. The Nixari had always thought of humans as useful, but unremarkable. They were not the strongest species, or the smartest, or the most advanced. But they had something that no other species possessed: the ability to see opportunities where others saw only problems. On the peaceful world of Harmony Station, the disappearance of human mediators had led to the outbreak of conflicts that had been dormant for centuries. 3 different species shared the station, and they had always had minor disagreements about territory and resources. For 50 years, Human diplomats had managed these disagreements with patience and creativity. They found solutions that let everyone save face while getting most of what they wanted. The aliens had come to take this service for granted. Now the humans were gone and old hatreds were surfacing. The crystalline collective accused the soft ones of stealing their meditation spaces. The soft ones claimed the metal shapers were poisoning the air with their industrial processes. The metal shapers insisted that both other species were trying to force them off the station entirely. Station Administrator Calm Current tried to mediate the disputes himself, but he lacked the humans' gift for finding creative compromises. Each meeting ended with more anger and less cooperation. How did the humans make it look so easy? He wondered aloud. His assistant, a young crystalline named Clear Thought, had worked closely with the human mediators. They listened to everyone, she said. Really listened. And they were not afraid to suggest ideas that seemed crazy at first. The Galactic Council had dismissed human diplomacy as naive and simple-minded. They had not understood that appearing simple was often the most sophisticated approach of all. As reports of chaos and breakdown flooded in from across the galaxy, some council members began to question whether they had made a terrible mistake. But their pride would not let them admit it openly. Instead, they blamed the humans for leaving. They accused humanity of being irresponsible and selfish. They claimed that a truly civilized species would have accepted the council's guidance. But in the quiet moments between public sessions, many of the council members found themselves staring at star charts that showed the empty regions where humans used to live and work. The galaxy had become a smaller, darker place, and for the first time in their long history, the older species were beginning to understand what they had lost. The war came without warning. War Master Skarn of the Brutari clans had been waiting for this moment for decades. The human peacekeepers were gone. The Council's forces were scattered across the galaxy, trying to handle a dozen different crises at once. It was time to reclaim what the Brutari considered rightfully theirs. The first targets were the weaker species that had once sheltered behind human protection. The peaceful Melodian colonies had never needed military forces of their own. Human patrol ships had kept the space lanes safe around their worlds. When trouble came, human negotiators had always found peaceful solutions. Now the Melodians watched their orbital stations burn as Brutari raiders swept through their space like a storm of violence. The beautiful crystal cities that had taken centuries to grow were shattered in hours. High Singer Harmony sent desperate pleas for help to the Galactic Council. The response was always the same. Council forces are engaged in other priority operations. Please wait for the next available peacekeeping unit. The Melodians were a species of artists and philosophers. They had never learned to fight because they had never needed to learn. Their songs could calm the angriest heart, and their art could bring tears to the hardest warrior. But songs and art could not stop plasma cannons and boarding parties. Chief Engineer Jinwoo received the Melodian distress signals aboard the human colony ship New Horizon. The ship was traveling through deep space beyond the galactic rim, heading toward humanity's new territories. The crew had been monitoring alien communications out of curiosity and concern for the species they had left behind. "Sir, the Melodians are being slaughtered," reported Communications Officer Hana. "Their entire fleet consists of 3 unarmed survey ships. They have no chance against the Brutari." Jinwoo stared at the tactical display showing the locations of the attacks. The New Horizon was armed and could reach Melodian space in 2 days. But they had orders to avoid contact with Council territories. "Send the information to Admiral Minji," he decided. "This is a decision for higher authority than mine." The message reached Earth just as another crisis was developing. The Valkorian Empire, one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, was facing total extinction. High Sage Crystal Mind had ruled her people for over 3,000 years. The Valkorians were beings of living crystal, who thought in mathematical concepts that other species could barely understand. They had built cities that were works of art and science combined into perfect harmony. Now those cities were dying. A genetic plague was spreading through the Valkorian population, turning their crystal bodies into lifeless stone. The plague attacked the quantum bonds that held their molecular structure together. Once infected, a Valkorian had perhaps 10 days before complete dissolution. The Valkorians were masters of mathematics and physics, but biology had always been foreign to them. They understood the universe in terms of equations and energy patterns, not genes and proteins. When the plague appeared, they had no idea how to fight it. Human doctors had studied Valkorian biology for decades. Dr. Soman had published papers on crystal-based life forms that were considered groundbreaking work. If anyone could cure the plague, it was human medical researchers. High Sage Crystal Mind did something that no Valkorian leader had ever done before. She set aside her pride and broadcast a public plea for help. To the humans who once walked among us as friends and colleagues, her message began. We acknowledge that we failed to appreciate your value when you were here. We thought ourselves too advanced to learn from such a young species. We were wrong. The message was broadcast on all frequencies sent to every corner of the galaxy. It was a species-wide admission of error that shocked the Council to its core. Our children are dying, Crystal Mind continued. Our cities grow silent. Our greatest minds cannot solve this puzzle that threatens our very existence. We ask not for charity, but for the chance to trade fairly for the knowledge we need. We offer everything we have, our technology, our art, our accumulated wisdom of millennia. All of it, in exchange for life itself. The message reached human space, but no reply came back. Meanwhile, the economic collapse was accelerating. Chancellor Kex of the Bethune Confederacy faced the complete breakdown of his civilization's expansion plans. The Thune were an aquatic species that had used human atmospheric processors to establish colonies on dry worlds. The technology was incredibly complex, requiring constant adjustments to maintain the delicate balance between water and air that the Bethune needed to survive. Human engineers had made it look easy, but the reality was that each installation required daily maintenance and weekly major adjustments. Without human technicians, the atmospheric processors were shutting down one by one. Thune colonists were being evacuated from worlds they had called home for generations. Entire colonial territories were being abandoned to the void. How many worlds have we lost? Kex asked his aide during their daily crisis briefing. 17 confirmed lost, sir. 23 more will be uninhabitable within the month. We estimate complete colonial collapse within 6 months. The Bethune Confederacy had grown from a single water world to an empire of 47 systems in just 2 centuries. It had been the fastest expansion in galactic history, made possible entirely by human technology and expertise. Now it was collapsing just as quickly. The most shocking development came from an unexpected source. The Eternal Custodians had watched over the galaxy for millions of years without ever interfering in the affairs of younger species. They were beings of pure energy who existed on a level that other species could barely comprehend. They had never spoken directly to any government or organization. Their rare communications came through mysterious artifacts that appeared without explanation and delivered brief, cryptic messages. But now, for the first time in recorded history, an eternal custodian appeared directly in the Galactic Council chambers. The being manifested as a column of shifting light that hurt to look at directly. When it spoke, its words seemed to come from inside each listener's mind rather than through the air. Young races, it said, and somehow every species in the chamber understood that it was addressing all of them. You have made an error that threatens the progress of this galaxy. Chancellor Grimtusk tried to respond, but found that he could not speak in the presence of such ancient power. The species you call humans were a catalyst for growth and change, the custodian continued. Their rapid development and unique perspective were driving innovation throughout this region of space. By forcing them to leave, you have created stagnation where there was once progress. The entity paused, and in that silence, every council member felt the weight of cosmic disapproval. Without the disruption that humans provided, your civilizations will gradually decline. You will become comfortable in your old patterns. You will stop exploring and learning and growing. In time, you will become extinct not through conquest or catastrophe, but through simple irrelevance. The custodian began to fade. This galaxy was becoming something new and wonderful. You have chosen to make it old and dying instead. The consequences of this choice will echo through the ages. And then it was gone, leaving behind only the lingering sense that something precious and irreplaceable had been lost forever. In the silence that followed, the council members looked at each other with growing realization. They had not simply rejected humanity's terms. They had rejected the galaxy's future, but pride was a powerful thing and admitting error seemed impossible. Instead of accepting responsibility, many of the council members chose to blame the humans for leaving, the custodians for interfering, and each other for not preventing the crisis. The galaxy continued its slide toward chaos, while somewhere beyond the rim, humanity was building something that their former neighbors could not even imagine. Admiral Minji stood on the observation deck of Earth's Resolve, humanity's most advanced battleship. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see the sprawling city ship that had become humanity's new capital. New Terra was not built on any planet. Instead, it floated in the void between galaxies, a massive structure that housed 12 million humans and their alien allies. The reports from the old galaxy came in daily through long-range communication arrays. Wars were spreading. Economies were collapsing. Species were going extinct. The Galactic Council was falling apart as member civilizations blamed each other for the growing chaos. "Admiral, we have another delegation request," reported Commander Yuna from the communication station. "The Nexari are offering to trade their entire merchant fleet for just one meeting with our economic advisors." Minji nodded, but did not reply immediately. In the past 6 months, humanity had received over 200 formal requests for aid, trade, or diplomatic contact. Most came from species that had supported the Council's demands for human submission. All were desperate now. The irony was not lost on her. The same aliens who had called humans too young and irresponsible to govern themselves were now begging for human help with problems they could not solve. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Captain Hunwoo's face appeared on the main screen. He was commanding the exploration fleet that had made contact with the first intelligent species in the neighboring galaxy. "Admiral, I have news that will change everything," he said with barely contained excitement. "We've found them, an entire galaxy of species that thinks like we do." The discovery had happened by accident. Human survey ships exploring their new territory had detected artificial signals from beyond the cosmic void. Following those signals, they had found not one alien civilization, but dozens of them working together as equals. The species called themselves the Frontier Alliance. Unlike the ancient civilizations of the old galaxy, these were all relatively young races. The oldest had achieved space travel only 10,000 years ago. The youngest had left their homeworld just 500 years ago. What made them special was not their age, but their attitude. They welcomed new members. They shared technology freely. They celebrated diversity instead of trying to enforce conformity. When they met humans for the first time, their first question had been, "What can we learn from each other?" The Zephrani are master terraformers who can transform dead worlds in decades instead of centuries. Hyunwoo continued his report. "The Corinthians have developed medical techniques that make our best hospitals look primitive. The Valdori have created art forms that combine music, light, and telepathy into experiences that have to be felt to be believed. Each species brought something unique to the Alliance, and all of them were eager to learn from humanity's experiences. They had heard stories of the old galaxy's rigid hierarchies and stagnant thinking. The Frontier Alliance had chosen a different path. They want us to join them," Hyunwoo said, "not as junior partners or probationary members, as full equals from day one." While Admiral Minji considered this news, an encrypted message arrived from the most unexpected source, Ambassador Jiwon. She had remained behind in neutral space, establishing a small diplomatic outpost that monitored communications from the old galaxy. Officially, she was there to gather intelligence about potential threats to human security. Unofficially, she was there in case any alien species genuinely wanted to repair relations with humanity. "Admiral, I have a visitor you need to know about," Jiwon's message began. "Envoy Zix of the Galactic Council is here. He claims to have full authority to negotiate new terms for humanity's return. The idea would have been laughable if the situation were not so tragic. The Council was offering to negotiate now that they were desperate. But they still did not understand what they had lost. Zix was considered the Council's finest diplomat. He had ended wars and forged peace treaties that had lasted for millennia. He had a reputation for finding solutions that satisfied everyone involved. But when he met with Ambassador Jiwon, he quickly realized that this was unlike any negotiation he had ever attempted. "The Council is prepared to offer significant concessions," he began. "Equal representation in all governing bodies, shared authority over military decisions, full autonomy for human colonies. We acknowledge that our previous terms were overly restrictive." Jiwon listened politely to his presentation. The offers were indeed generous compared to the original demands. If the Council had made these proposals a year ago, humanity might have accepted them. I appreciate the effort that went into these terms, she replied, but I'm afraid you still don't understand the situation. She activated a holographic display that showed the region beyond the galactic rim. Hundreds of human settlements dotted the star map. Trade routes connected human colonies with the worlds of their new allies. Construction projects showed massive space habitats under development. Humanity is no longer seeking membership in your council, Jiwan explained. We have found something better. Zik studied the display with growing amazement. In less than a year, humans had established a presence across thousands of star systems. They had made contact with entirely new civilizations. They had created trade networks and research partnerships that spanned intergalactic distances. How is this possible? He asked. We did what humans do best, Jiwan replied. We adapted. When you made it clear that we were not welcome in your galaxy as equals, we found another galaxy that appreciated what we had to offer. She showed him images from the Frontier Alliance worlds. Human doctors working alongside Corinthian healers to develop new treatments. Human engineers collaborating with Zafrani terraformers to build paradise worlds. Human artists learning from Valdori masters to create beauty that transcended species boundaries. The alliance grows stronger every day, Jiwan continued. 23 species working together, sharing knowledge, building something greater than any of us could achieve alone. And they all want to learn from humanity's experiences with older, more established civilizations. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not simply left the old galaxy. They had found an entirely different model for galactic civilization. One that was based on cooperation instead of domination, innovation instead of tradition, growth instead of stagnation. What would it take to restore diplomatic relations? Six asked desperately. Jiwan's expression softened slightly. Perhaps in time there could be contact between our civilizations. But it would have to be between equals. The Council would need to approach the Frontier Alliance as partners, not as subjects to be governed. She paused to let that sink in. And frankly, I'm not sure your civilization has anything to offer that we need. Captain Hyunwoo's final report from the exploration fleet confirmed what many humans had begun to suspect. The Frontier Alliance was offering humanity opportunities that the old galaxy could never match. New worlds to explore, new technologies to develop, new friends to learn from. The Alliance Council has voted unanimously, Hyunwoo reported. Humanity is invited to join as a full member with all rights and privileges. They're offering us equal partnership in projects that will reshape entire star systems. The vote among human leadership was also unanimous. Humanity would join the Frontier Alliance and help build something unprecedented in galactic history. A civilization based on mutual respect and shared growth, Admiral Minji composed the message that would close the door on humanity's old life forever. To the Galactic Council and all member species. The message began, Humanity thanks you for the valuable lesson you taught us. You showed us that the galaxy is vast enough for many different approaches to civilization. The message was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every species in the old galaxy would hear it. We have found partners who share our values and vision for the future. Together with the Frontier Alliance, we are building something that we believe represents the best hope for galactic civilization. The stars are wide enough for all of us. You chose to make them smaller. We have chosen to make them larger. The final line would be remembered by historians for centuries to come. Thank you for setting us free. As human ships disappeared into the void between galaxies, heading toward their new home among the stars of the Frontier Alliance, the old galaxy continued its slow decline into chaos and irrelevance. Behind them, they left civilizations that would spend centuries trying to rebuild what they had carelessly thrown away. Ahead of them lay infinite possibilities, and the chance to prove that cooperation was stronger than domination, that innovation was more valuable than tradition, and that the future belonged to those who were brave enough to embrace it. The peace talks had indeed collapsed, but from that collapse something far greater had been born.